And this is why you need a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. You have these beautiful headlights that are full of like crystals, and it even says Mercedes-Benz up here. You've got this gorgeous interior with wood and leather everywhere. You've got this lovely trackpad and dial that you can turn. You've got all your suspension settings with your seat settings, your display settings, obviously the hazard lights, which you never use. You've got your vehicle body control settings, on and off for the display, and your volume settings with the auto start-stop. You have an absolutely beautiful steering wheel with all metal and leather with these lovely flappy paddle gearbox. So talking about displays, you have two 12-inch displays, one purely for media, for your navigation, your music, and you can even access the internet here. And you have a dedicated driver's digital display here with all your different settings. So I'm 6'2", and this is my driving position with a seat as far back as I possibly can, just holding the steering wheel. And I have masses amounts of legroom here, literally masses. I can put my seats like this here. I've got heated seats in the rear, this lovely wooden trim with this leather. You also have vents here, vents here, vents there, as well as on the passenger side. You have these lovely vanity mirrors to obviously look at yourself, because that's important. You've got to be able to be obviously vain. Of course, you're in a Mercedes. You've got these lovely handles with controls for the rear lights and a reading light. Now, I think this is a quirk of Mercedes-Benz, but their boot design is fantastic. You have absolute masses of space. Like, I mean, I can barely just touch there. Literal masses of space. And I mean, it's actually rather comfortable. I can go for a nap right now. Do you want to shut the boot for me?
What are the specs of this car?
So this is a 3-litre V6 diesel with a single turbo, 7-speed gearbox, and obviously rear-wheel drive.
How much horsepower and torque does it have?
So it has 255 horsepower with 620 Newton meters of torque, and it weighs 1,955 kilos empty.
That's impressive.
It's really impressive. 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds, which is surprising. It feels a lot quicker.
Ooh, that instant pull that you get off it.
And the fact you're on a rather uncomfortable road.
Yep.
And as you can see, we're super comfortable. There's very little movement in the cabin here. The road is quite bumpy.
What is the history on this car?
Yeah, so the history, I bought this car just shy of 3 years ago now, and I've put on quite a decent bit of mileage on it. It's been my kind of daily car for a good year and well, I haven't driven it all the time, but I've driven it a lot, and specifically the winter times, the more dangerous times of the year. But yeah, I've had the car for just under 3 years. It's never had any issues, never given me any trouble. The only thing it's ever had is a set of tires and then services, of course.
So from a performance standpoint, where does this car stand?
Oh, this car, it is a very impressive car. It's not the fastest car in the world, but it's also not the slowest car. And with the air suspension, we can obviously lower the air suspension, and then as well as we can adjust the gearbox, how the gearbox reacts to your driving. So it's very hard to get a heavy car like this here, and a very long and wide car to perform as well as it does.
Besides performance specs, what other interesting quirks does the car have?
Yeah, so it's obviously a 2015 car. So it's got a lot of new features. So it's got the two 12-inch displays for your driver, which is really nice because you obviously have digital displays. You can have your sat nav, whatever you want there, which I love that. It's also got electronically folding wing mirrors, all that drama, as well as it has cameras up here on the windshield that measure the road and adjust the suspension, because this is air suspension.
Yep.
So being air suspension, you can lower the car in sport mode, have it in normal and comfort mode, and then you can actually raise it up a further few inches. So I think it's about 6 inches of raise from the lowest to the highest, which is fantastic. Yes, it's really comfortable. You've got the magic body control, so when you're driving down the road, you can drive, and if you're going over speed bumps, it'll try and level out the car as much as possible. And I think it's up to 130 kilometers an hour, which is just over 70 miles an hour, and it'll read the road up to 3 millimeters in accuracy. That is literally like a pebble size, like a little gravel stone size. And it'll adjust the suspension to keep you as comfortable as possible. So driving around in this car, it's just incredibly comfortable and shockingly good, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's got that there. It's got heated seats all around. It's got electric seats in the front seats, of course. You can drop your rear headrests, but I mean, they could do that since the 90s. What other car brand can do that?
True.
Think about it.
This is probably one of the best interiors I think I've ever seen in a car. from my point of view and my taste, it's super simple, lovely metallic buttons, big screens, some of the best air conditioning I think I've ever been in a car, and it's a really nice place to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, like you say, it's all leather. This leather, I think, is Nappa leather. So you've got Nappa leather, you've got all aluminium buttons, as you mentioned, and like everything's just in the perfect place. So like as a driver, my hands here on the left hand side of the console, my fingers touch all the buttons. You know, it's just perfectly placed out and organized. You've got the two lovely displays with obviously your navigation, your gauge cluster, and like everything's just so, there's nothing you ever go looking for, but there's not everything you don't ever need. And something like you don't use very often is like the rear headrest drop. It's just there, you know exactly where it is, but it's not intruding on the experience.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. There's no extra buttons, it's just everything you need perfectly.
So how did you acquire this beautiful German automobile?
Yes, so a few years ago I was doing a lot of mileage, and I was obviously driving the blue E430 and a Corsa VXR, which neither are fantastic for fuel. So obviously doing over 20,000 miles, I think it was nearly 30,000 miles a year. It was obviously a lot cheaper to get something a bit more economical, so I actually found this car here and bought it with the amount of money I was spending every month on fuel, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so I went and got this car in Killyleagh, which is just outside Leeds, Bradford. So I flew across from Northern Ireland, of course, got an Uber up. Funny thing, it was actually a strike that day, so there was like so many people just waiting, and I just got an Uber and just left. I pre-planned it. Yeah, got there, got the car, and then drove all the way from Killyleagh all the way up to Ken Ryan to get the boat across to Belfast, which is interesting, cool drive. Obviously, just got in the car just on the way up. But yeah, I bought the car in Killyleagh, and I've had it now for just under 3 years, I think it is.
That is impressive! No way! What? That is earth-moving amounts of power. Did you know that the average person sleeps for 26 years? So you might as well sleep in comfort with today's sponsor, Sure Sleep. Sure Sleep is a local Northern Irish bed retailer. Their beds are all locally made in Northern Ireland. And with the code GearShiftCrew, you get an extra £10 off on your next purchase. That does include free delivery and free assembly. So what are you waiting for? Jump on the deal whilst it's hot and enjoy the rest of your video. So why did you pick the S-Class over Audi's A8 or BMW's 7 Series?
Oh, okay, that's a very good question. Personally, I just love the look of these Mercedes, and in my opinion, these are one of the nicest shapes and the nicest interiors. Like if you compare this car to a BMW or Audi of the exact same year, the S-Class has such a nicer interior. Mm-hmm. It looks better. It's got much more modern features and design inside.
Yep.
So if you compare it to the old, you compare it to the Audi A8, for example, it has just normal gauge cluster, you know, physical dials, and I think it's a 4-inch display. In this car, you get two 12-inch displays in digital, as well as the fact you get, you know, the magic body control, which this is the first car generation ever to have full LEDs. So this is the first generation of Mercedes and first generation of car in the world to purely have LEDs, no halogens, and to have magic body control built in. That's the first ever. So I mean, you get a lot of technology for the money. And I don't think it's actually aged very badly. I think it's aged remarkably well.
Because comparing the interior of this to the newer generation,
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. It's horrible.
Do you know one thing? I think the biggest mistake car companies ever made was the piano black interior. It looks beautiful, brand new. But about 30 seconds after, when you got in, you brushed your arm against it, it all looks terrible.
Yeah, because it's a dust magnet.
Even not even the dust magnet part. It's just the fact that, like, you know, there's no way to clean it without scratching it.
That as well, yeah.
You know, any little bit of thing will scratch it. You know, the leather is just so good. And I don't know why car companies decided they can open the piano black. I know it looks very elegant, like, you know, grand piano, but it's really damn awful.
Yeah. What are some of the quirks about this car?
So one interesting thing about this car is it actually has Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah.
So it has Wi-Fi built in. Obviously, you need to be able to connect it to a broadband provider or like a service provider, but it does have Wi-Fi. It also has the the headlights, when you turn the steering wheel, the headlights turn in accordance to which way you turn the steering wheel. And when you're driving down the road, it's got automatic high beams. I'm not sure if you've seen the new Audi ads. I mean, obviously this is 2015, but it actually does the exact same thing. Of when you're driving down the road and there's a car in that right-hand lane for us, it'll actually cut the bright light out of the eyes of the other oncoming driver while keeping the other lights on, or the brights on. So you have pretty much brights on all the time except for where another car is, and it'll track that car and gradually turn them off, and once the car's left it'll keep brights on. Like, we've driven a C-Class and A-Classes, similar age, very similar kind of design style inside. But I mean, if you go from the C-Class, it's got a 5 or 6 inch display in it, to this car you got a 12 inch to two 12-inch displays. All the buttons and all the trimmings is all aluminium and proper wood. There's no fake leather. There's not like it's fake leather, but it's fake materials like plastics.
No plastics, and the screens have like massive bezels on them.
Yeah, this obviously has a large bezel on it, but the way the design is, it's super hidden in effect. It's very, very nicely done. So this is what 250 horsepower and 620 newton meters of torque feels like.
God, the earth-moving power
as well. It really does shift.
That is impressive.
It does.
For a 2.2 ton thing?
Yeah, two and a bit tons. Yeah, obviously, there's us in it, and really does move. Pulls like anything.
Now it's time to rate the car. So, future classic.
I think this is a hard one to say, right? It is a diesel, which is obviously a bit of a negative against the car. It's not the V8 or V10. Sorry, V12, sorry. But the benefit, in my opinion, is probably the most stylish, and it is the best looking, best interior Mercedes I've ever seen and ever owned myself. So I think for the fact that it's rather stylish, it's got a lot of features. It's quite an iconic car for the fact that it's the first car in the world to ever have full LEDs as well as magic body control. I mean, a collector could look at that and go, oh, that's a pretty important thing, or quite an interesting thing to have as a classic.
I put that as a 7, you know.
Oh, I wouldn't put it that high, to be honest with you.
6?
I would probably go more for 5.
5?
It's not guaranteed, but I think it would be likely. You've got all the features, you've got all the interesting things about the car, the new things, the lovely interior that's not going to age, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to go with a 5 for the fact that it's also a diesel, but it's a pretty powerful diesel. And I mean, a lot of people say they're unreliable, but in my experience over a few years of ownership, no trouble, no problems. I don't see why the car couldn't chug on to being a 30, 40, 50-year-old car.
So 5, you think?
It's all aluminium as well, don't forget that. So it's not going to rust away. Number 5, I'm going to go.
5? Okay, right. Daily. Now this is, I think it'll do really well in, because keep in mind, big car, loads of space for the family, big boot, good fuel efficiency, lovely interior.
I mean, I think in my opinion, it's God tier daily, except for one thing: we live in the UK.
Yeah,
small roads. Not like that's ever been a problem, but it's more the parking spaces, stuff like that there. But I mean, for the fact that you've got incredible amounts of boot space, incredible amounts of legroom for the rear passengers and front passengers, you've got magic body control, you've got cruise control, you've got a 3-litre V6 turbo diesel producing 255 horsepower, 620 newton meters of torque, 7-speed. I think it pretty much, you got the sportiness and you got the comfort. I honestly think it's God tier, so I'm going to go with the number 9, to be honest with you. That's kind of my opinion.
You know, I'll let you have that one, because I can agree with you, yes.
And that is actually the first car we have ranked God tier and daily. Pretty impressive.
You know,
So the next one is wallet hurt. I mean, it's going to be expensive when something breaks, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like a service is pretty expensive.
But in 3 years, have you owned it
3 years? 3 years. I've never had any trouble. No.
So
I would say, I mean, it's got loads of moving parts which will break. That's just, if it moves, it'll break. Yeah. So air suspension, you've got all the gadgets and stuff. I think it's going to be probably going to cost an arm and a leg, so I'm going to maybe give it a 5.
Okay, 5 it is. And fun.
Ooh. It's one of those cars where I know I'm being a hypocrite and saying diesel cars aren't sport-like. And I know it's a big boat of a car, but it does an absolutely fantastic job of managing your body control, your performance, the gearbox. It all works fantastically well all together, which generally you get one or the other. And for the fact that it's a 2-ton car with so much space, it's very hard not to smile in it, for the simple fact that you can drive slowly and smile while doing 30 miles an hour over speed bumps while drinking your Starbucks, and then put your Starbucks in the holster, put it in sport mode, and then outperform cars on roundabouts or corners. So I'm going to say smiling never really stops. The fact that you're also in a Mercedes and you just look down at everyone knowing you're better, it's very hard to beat that.
I would say a 7, but...
I'm going to go with 7 as well.
Okay. So that...
brings us to 65.
65%,
which
with
is
a total of 26
out of 40.
So yeah,
that's pretty good. To be fair,
good.
Now
that is nipping at the heels of the BMW and that is the Siemens, the BMW M5, and nipping at the heels of the E430. Now we're going to have biases towards E430 because that thing is just amazing in every single way possible.
It is. There's nothing wrong with that car ever. It's just perfect. But I think that's rather impressive, to be brutally honest with you.
So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Make sure you like, subscribe to our new podcast channel, link in the description, and Sean has something to say.
I do. I have some exciting but sad news.
Yes.
I am selling this car, unfortunately. Well, I mean, it's currently sold, technically, in an extent. But yeah, this car is being sold currently, and I am purchasing something a little crazier. So next week, you'll see that.
That's it. So something to look forward to next week. So we'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.
I'm actually surprised how comfortable this is. This is shockingly comfortable. I could definitely sleep in here. Oh, damn. Does mayonnaise have egg in it? Or just, no, it does have egg in it, but does it have milk in it?